Hello, everyone. This is Mrs. Gonzalez Clark again. We are going to talk about today how we multiply a decimal with a decimal and how that multiplication is directly related to multiplying fraction with a fraction. So we're going to work on a word problem, and we are going to use the three-read protocol in order for us to get a better understanding of the problem. And then after we complete the three-read protocol, we are going to talk about a solution and an explanation that can be used to solve this problem. So I'm going to begin with the first read. After I complete the first read, I want you to start thinking about what types of situations do you notice after the first read. So I will begin reading the problem. An adult female gorilla is 1 4/10 meters tall when standing upright. Her daughter is 3/10 as tall. So I want you to pause your video. I'm going to give you a few moments, and I want you to think about what type of situation do you see in this problem. So pause your video and take a few moments. Okay, so let's talk about it. So an adult female gorilla is 1 4 meters tall when standing upright. Her daughter is 3/10 as tall. So the situation that's occurring here is that we have two gorillas. We have an adult gorilla and we have a daughter gorilla, who obviously must be the baby. And what's happening here is that there is some kind of comparison of heights of these two animals. So the situation in the problem is that there are two gorillas and their heights are being compared. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the second read. You guys are going to read along with me. And after we complete the second read, I want you all to start thinking about what quantities pop up and what quantities do you feel will be very important in order for us to solve this problem. So let's get ready to read it together. 1, 2, 3. An adult female gorilla is 1 4/10 meters tall when standing upright. Her daughter is 3/10 as tall. So again, I want you to pause your video, and I'm going to give you a few moments so that you can think about what quantities stand out from this problem. Okay, so some of the quantities that stood out in this problem is that the adult gorilla is 1 4/10 meters tall. Another very important quantity that is represented in this problem is that the daughter gorilla is 3/10 as tall as the mother gorilla, or as the female gorilla. So those are two very, very important quantities that we should know so that we can execute this problem and solve it. Sorry, I'm just making the font a little larger for you all. Okay, great. So now we're going to move on to the last read. We're going to read it together. And after we read it this last time together, we are going to think about what mathematical questions could you ask about this situation. So let's get ready to read. 1, 2, 3. An adult female gorilla is 1 4/10 meters tall when standing upright. Her daughter is 3/10 as tall. So pause your video, and I want you to think of mathematical questions that you can ask about the situation. So I'll give you a moment. Okay, so let's think about this. What type of mathematical questions do you think we can ask about this situation? So One mathematical question that I think is pretty important to ask is, how tall is the daughter gorilla? Now, the problem states that the daughter gorilla is 3/10 as tall as her mom, but we don't actually know the height of that daughter gorilla. Another question that we can ask is, how much more will the young female gorilla need to grow before she is as tall as her mother? So let's put that. Just making it a little bigger. Excellent. Okay, so we have our two mathematical questions. We were able to think about what the situation is that's occurring in the problem, and we also thought about what important quantities are represented in the problem. So now we will transition into that explanation and how we can actually execute this problem. Okay, so what we learned from the problem is that we have two gorillas. We have an adult gorilla that is 1 4/10 meters tall. We have a baby gorilla that is 3/10 as tall as the adult female gorilla. Okay, so these models represent just that. We have the model here that represents 1 4/10, and we have a model here that represents a whole, and it's broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's broken up into 10/10 because 10/10 gives us the whole. Okay, so 3/10, the baby is 3/10 as big as the adult. So we need to find out how big is the baby. So when we read the word problem told us the baby is 3/10 as big as the adult, but it gave it to us in word form. So what I did was I took the word form and I changed it into a fraction. So we know that 3/10 looks like this as a fraction, 3/10. Now we know that the baby is 3/10 as big as the mom, which is 1 4/10 meters tall. So instead of having a fraction and a decimal to multiply, I'm going to change the decimal into a fraction. Now, we know that one whole is equal to 10/10, which is represented by this model here. Now we have 10/10 to represent the whole, but then we have an additional 4/10 that we need to combine with that. So in total, 1 4/10 is equal to 14/10. Okay? So now we have two fractions that we can easily multiply. So we'll multiply across. 3 times 14 gives us 42. 10 times 10 gives us 100. So that means that the baby gorilla, the daughter gorilla, is 4,200 meters tall. So I'm going to go back to our mathematical questions. So the first mathematical question that we came up with was, how tall is the daughter gorilla? And now we know the daughter gorilla is 4,200 meters tall. Okay? This is the amount that we got when we multiplied the two fractions. So the baby is 3/10 as tall as the adult. That 3/10 as tall as 1 4/10 came out to be 4,200. Now, we have another mathematical question. How much more will the young female gorilla need to grow before she is as tall as her mother? So we know how tall the daughter gorilla is. We know how tall the adult female gorilla is. Now we need to see how much more bigger does the baby need to grow in order to be this height? So we have to see how much is in between this 42 hundredths and 1 and 4 tenths. And in order for us to do that, we can conduct subtraction. So I took 1 and 4 tenths and I subtracted the 42 hundredths. Now, here it says 1 and 40 hundredths, which is equal to 1 and 4 tenths. I filled in with a 0 here so that each digit has something to be subtracted by. So after I conducted the subtraction, that left me with 98 hundredths. So the baby needs to grow 98 hundredths meters in order for it to be as tall as the mommy, which is 1 and 4 tenths meters tall. So what we did was we took two amounts, we turned the two amounts into fractions, we multiplied those fractions, it gave us our product, and then we had to take that product and subtract it from the initial amount of 1 and 4 tenths, which finally gave us the amount that told us how much the baby needs to grow in order to be its mommy's height. So we were able to answer both of our mathematical questions. Great job.